I yap so much about Demon Slayer that I had to make this part. Hello and welcome to part 2 of my spoiler-filled review of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle Part 1. Just like them making Infinity Castle a 3-part trilogy, I am making this not a trilogy. Don't worry, I'm not going to split this into 3 parts. This will be 2, but they will both be very long, so I apologize in advance. But this is going to be a spoilery review. If you have not watched the movie, then put a pin on this video and come back because I will be discussing extreme spoilers from the new Infinity Castle movie. If you haven't seen the movie though, what are you doing? Go watch it right now. Like, stop my video, go watch it, and now come back and watch the video. Thank you. And if this is your first time with my channel and you have not seen part 1, you want to hear my thoughts on the beginning of the movie, Shinobu versus Doma, and Zenitsu versus Kaigaku, I'll put the video right here. So go check it out. But we're gonna dive right in because I'm just yapping like crazy. There's no notes, there's no real formal thing that I'm doing here. I am just talking. So welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, I'm not like artsy with my editing. I literally just yap about Demon Slayer because I love doing it and I've somehow grown a following. But we're gonna dive right in. Before we do, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts. Let's get into it. So where we left off with the end of Zenitsu versus Kaigaku with Jigoro saying, "You are my pride and joy," and Yushiro saving him. So I will also add, again, if you're not watching part 1 because you only want to hear my thoughts on this part of the movie, which is totally fine because this part of the movie was arguably by far the best. I am a manga reader, so I've also been talking about where they've changed things. I am going to go through and like with a fine-tooth comb, write down everything that they added, everything that they took out, and make a video dedicated to that. But I am kind of touching on it because a lot of times the differences between manga to anime does affect my own perception of the movie, and since this is my own like personal review, I'm not talking about like objective facts or anything. I'm literally just talking about the movie. Like, I'm just yapping. I've been incorporating this a lot because I feel like that's just a part of how I feel about this movie. So that being said, Yushiro saves Zenitsu, and the dialogue between Yushiro and Murata was freaking hilarious. But they added a lot from this. First things first, the water breathing form from Murata was anime original. There was at some point in the manga, so in the manga, in case you've never read it, in between chapters, Gotoge sensei, the mangaka, so the author, they'll write little added tidbits, or they'll do little silly sketches, and many times Ufotable will actually take that and make it a part of the anime. They've done that quite a few times. And at some point, there was like a little thing right here. I think it was actually when Gotoge said that they don't actually physically materialize the elements, which has caused so much discourse within the fandom of Demon Slayer and just anime fandom in general. But in that moment, they also explained that Murata, he uses water breathing, but you can't see the water because he's quite weak at it. So they added that. So he used water wheel. I think I don't remember exactly what number that is, but that was all anime original, seeing Murata use water wheel, but you can't see any water come out of it. The whole audience just erupted into laughter. They did a good job. There's a couple moments throughout the movie where something wasn't really funny in the manga, but in the anime it was like, oh, that was actually really funny, and we're all giggling. So they did a good job at like lightening the mood here and there because it's such a serious part of the story. So anyway, that was a really funny moment that I really enjoyed. Otherwise, it's interesting because Murata was staying with Zenitsu, but in the manga, he's like running with them while they like look for demons. In the anime, they changed it where he's staying behind with Zenitsu. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just, they definitely made this flow differently. They also, like I mentioned in my first review, there's a lot of narration moments that are from a character that does not exist in the plot. It's just like an outside narrator that Ufotable chose to take out from the beginning. In the manga, there's actually this little scene with Tamayo that they took out, but the manga explains that as long as Muzan is the only demon that can make more demons, Yushiro is the only example of someone becoming a demon through Tamayo's power. Trying to act natural, he dons the core uniform and blends in with the others. He was mad about that, obviously, when Tamayo said told him to do it. They took this all out of the anime, probably to add the water wheel, which is like, okay, like, which one do you prefer? Tamayo presses him to help rescue and support Core Slayers, which he doesn't want to do because he wants to be by Tamayo's side. Those working with him, including Murata, sense something unusual but have no idea he's a demon. Because, as mentioned before, he is the one and only demon created by Tamayo. It also says earlier on that his eyes were changed, and that was the only thing that changed to make sure he looks like a human. In the manga, it says, he just says, uh-oh, something's coming, but in the anime, I liked that they changed this. He specifically says, like, they're gonna run into one when he's talking about Tanjido and Giyu. And I liked that they added that because to me, it showed that even though Yushiro will act all tough and like he doesn't care about Tanjiro, he cares about Tanjiro. I think he genuinely likes the kid. He just is Yushiro and he's silly. So I like that they added that in the anime where he's saying like, oh no, like they're going to run into one too, when he's talking specifically about Tanjiro and Giyu, which also made it obvious that he was like paying attention, like extra attention to where Tanjiro was. So I found that interesting because that's not in the manga. He just says there's something coming. And then we jump into Akaza's entrance. Now him breaking through all of the buildings within the castle, that was pretty anime original. We just see this, really. And then Akaza shows up. They're like, what is this shaking? Tanjiro realizes the smell. And I just have to say, I had been waiting for this whole moment and this whole fight, but specifically for this, for so long, because I am a super fan of his voice actor, Natsuki Hanai-san, as I usually refer to him. I could not wait to hear the anger in Tanjiro's voice when he yells out Akaza, because this is like, look at how angry he is. Of course, in manga and anime, they show anger by having their like veins pop out, right? And oh my goodness, did Hanai-san kill this moment. His Akaza! I was like, ah! So that was just such a fantastic entrance. And yes, again, people were complaining that Akaza shows up, Tanjiro yells his name, and then we immediately go somewhere else. This is the next page. Like, they are adapting the manga. So if you want to complain about pacing, I guess that's like just an issue as a whole with the way the story is. But there is so much happening, like they have to just show multiple things happening at once. This is the final war. This is not like all of the other arcs where we were focused on one battle the entire time, outside of like Mugen Train where we had two battles because Akaza just showed up. There's so much happening at once that we do just have to bounce around because the story is just, it's getting to the close. So there's a lot of things happening. This is very common for a final battle. This is very common for the final arc of a story. I don't mind it. I think that like this kind of stuff has to happen because we do have to bounce around. I much prefer that we're more bouncing around at the very beginning and end of things and in between. But once we like get into the meat of a fight, we stay there until it gets closure, whether it be like Shinobu versus Doma. Didn't really get closure. Like, yeah, the Shinobu part was done, obviously, because she was dead. But the rest of that fight will be in the next one. Again, that's the way the manga is. So they have to just keep showing things. And it just means that like we do a little bit of bouncing around. They definitely, to me, added a little bit more to Tamayo and what was going on with her. Like, she is definitely like being absorbed in the cocoon in the manga. The anime just kind of added to it. Oh, okay, and here's literally the next page is the little bit about Murata. So it says, I'll read it all to you because I've been doing this. Murata was all alone after demons killed his family, so he joined the Demon Slayer Corps. He uses water breathing, but he's so weak that you can't see any water. Note, the swordsmen don't actually produce water, but it looks that way to people watching. Besides Urokadaki, there are other trainers who teach water breathing. Water breathing is easy for beginners, so more swordsmen use it than any other style of breathing. So Gotoge like dropped 3 different lore pieces here. That Murata uses water breathing, but you can't see it because he's weak at it. That swordsmen don't actually produce the elements. Well, they actually only specifically said water. They don't even say the elements, but it looks that way to people watching. Remember, they're just confirming that no, they're not using magic, but everyone within the story sees what we as an audience see. So it doesn't matter. It goes along with the story because they are humans and they are at a disadvantage to the demons. So of course they can't actually produce the elements that they are breathing, but everyone sees it. Okay? Okay. Debunked. And then besides Urokadaki, there are other trainers who teach water breathing because it's easy for beginners. So there's way more water breathing teachers than anyone else, it seems. So after they show Tamayo, they go back to the Ubuyashiki family and we see one of the younger sisters start to cry. Oh, and so there's another little fun fact. At final selection in volume 1, the black-haired child holding a lantern was Kirya. He was the only boy among the 5 children, so he became the new head of the household in place of his father. There's another tidbit somewhere that explains that they dressed him as a girl to protect his identity in case Muzan ever found them, because he would be the heir to the Ubuyashiki family, and if he were dressed like a girl, Muzan wouldn't necessarily know, or at least a low-ranked demon wouldn't necessarily know if they were sent after him anyway. So I find that to be pretty interesting. And then we show Tengen and Shinjiro. I'm kind of using this to remember how we go through the movie as well, because this helps me remember the timing of everything. Side note, Tengen was freaking glowing. It literally took my breath away. And we'll talk about this in a minute with Giyu too, because they were making his eyes glow and stuff. They made all of the already very beautiful men literally glow in this movie, and I was just like, simp. I'm a simp. I'm a simp. I'm a simp for Tengen and Giyu. Those are my 2 favorite characters in Demon Slayer to simp for. So anyway, and we had Shinjiro, and they're just kind of explaining that they're there to protect them, protect the Ubuyashiki kids. And then we also find out that Nezuko is here with Urokadaki, and we find out that she has been administered the medicine. It's kind of been an assumption that she was, because she's not there, which is correct. She shouldn't be there, because Muzan's entire goal is to find her and absorb her, and then he would become immortal and impossible to kill, and that would be an issue. That would be the end of mankind as we know it, because if Muzan were immortal, that would mean that he would live to see technology like today, and he would be able to travel around the world and wreak havoc everywhere. It would be like the rumbling. So Nezuko is not there because they do not want him to find Nezuko, and it seems like they are all in the same building. So all of the Ubuyashiki kids, Nezuko, and Urokadaki is watching over her, and then Tengen and Shinjiro are there to protect them, not if Muzan showed up. I believe they are there to protect them in case any number of demons show up. I believe we as an audience at this point know, because we kind of had the context, that it seems like all of the demons are inside the Infinity Castle, and I think the manga explains it at some point. I don't remember exactly when, so it could be described later, but all of the demons are in the Infinity Castle. Muzan has every single demon that he's ever created in the Infinity Castle, but they don't know that. They only knew some of the plan. So I think Tengen and Shinjiro are simply there in case a demon shows up and they have to protect her. I don't think they're there to protect her from Muzan, because they wouldn't be able to. I saw someone try to argue that they were there and they would kill Nezuko if Muzan showed up. That was their last resort to keep her from being able to be absorbed, because it would be Nezuko has to die for the greater good. But I don't think they can kill Nezuko, personally, because she's immune to the sun. The swords only work because they have sunlight in them. Therefore, it's not a far stretch to say that Nezuko would not be able to die from a demon slayer, because she's not weak to the blades like other demons are, because she is immune to the sun. Anyway, side tangent. I love to do that. I love how I'm just kind of sitting here chatting with you all in my chair, because yay, this is the review that I've been wanting to do for forever, and it's taking me forever. But so we see kind of Urokadaki talk about, will Nezuko become human? That would ruin his plans. This was pretty much word for word. He did add a little bit, some of the dialogue is longer. Also, so in the anime, they definitely made Tanjiro look younger than what he looked like at the beginning of the show. But I always saw this, look at how childlike Tanjiro looks here. And I always feel like this was the way Urokadaki Like, this is Tanjiro through Urokadaki's eyes when he met him, and that's how young he looked to Urokadaki, like how childlike. He looks like a small child. And in the anime, they did make him look a little bit younger. And he says, don't lose, Nezuko, don't lose, Tanjiro. You must not lose before we get into this fight. Now, I have to talk about this fight a little bit differently than I talked about Shinobu versus Doma and Zenitsu versus Kaigaku, because this fight alone has many different parts to it because it's so much longer than the other two. Like, keep in mind, like I said, Zenitsu versus Kaigaku was like 2 chapters. Shinobu versus Doma was, I think, 4. This one, let's see here, this is chapter 147, and it goes all the way until 157, because that was pretty much where the movie ended. So while those were quick, this fight was more than twice as long as those two, so there's a lot more to talk about with it. I don't even know where to start, honestly. I don't know where to start. What do I say? What do I do? How do I start? Okay. All right, let's just first talk about the first few moments with it, when Tanjiro just instantly jumps in and Giyu says that it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that Tanjiro is Hashira level. I think that's so interesting because as the fight progresses, I think it's very obvious that the level that Giyu is fighting at is still much higher than Tanjiro. So on one hand, he's like complimenting Tanjiro in this moment, and he's calling back to, you know, the first moment that he met him. And can you argue that the way Giyu handled the situation was not great? Because, and I'm talking about in the first episode of the show where he like yells at Tanjiro to like not cry and stuff, and it's like, bro, he just lost his entire family and his sister is a demon, and he's literally like, he cannot imagine what'll happen if you take away his sister right now. But like, Giyu has his reasoning, and Giyu has his own traumatic past that we've been enlightened on now, right? So I feel like him saying this and then calling back to the way that like all Tanjiro could do when he met him was just kind of grovel and beg because he didn't have the skill. And then Giyu is like, you know, you now can live with dignity because you can fight and you can damage upper 3. Like he literally just hit him twice. Like he cut off his arm and he sliced him in the face, which, fun fact, every time I've watched it, except for like maybe the last time when there was only a couple people in the theater, when Tanjiro sliced Akaza in the face, the whole audience went, whoa, like, oh, okay, Tanjiro, I see you. And I was like, yes, that's my boy. But I really like the way they depicted this opening moment because Tanjiro like just goes in for it. Like he jumps in immediately. It's very different from a lot of the other moments where it seems like everyone's just kind of talking and waiting for the next person to make a move. But in this moment, like Tanjiro just jumps in and he's like, I gotta do this. Ike. And I was like, go Tanjiro! And Giyu's just like, whoa. And I love this moment because Giyu feels like, I think up until now, he has to protect him because Tanjiro needs protection. But now he's kind of like, oh, does he even need my protection? He does, absolutely. Giyu definitely saves him multiple times in this fight, while Tanjiro really only saves him the once. So I guess let's talk about some of my favorite moments with the fight. First things first, I'll kind of try and go like chronological order here because I'm going to be talking about this fight for a hot minute because this is my favorite fight in the entire story. Will it remain that after I see everything animated? We'll see. Not because this was animated poorly. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I give from the time this fight starts all the way to the end of the story, including Akaza's backstory, a 10 out of 10. I don't think they could have done it better. From the music, the voice acting, the animation, the pacing, everything, 10 out of 10. It was done perfectly. I have no complaints. Okay, wait. I give it a 9.9 out of 10. And that is because they cut out one dialogue moment that I thought was very, 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 very important and kind of ruined one of my absolute favorite moments in the entire manga, which I'll talk about because that's at the end. But the way this fight starts, first of all, I can say this without even looking at the manga. When the three of them got separated, when like Akaza's up high and then Giyu's right here and then Tanjiro's kind of like down below and the waterfalls start, that's all anime original. And I literally, when I was watching this the first time, I literally sat there and said, okay, UFO table, now you're just flexing. This is definitely not in the manga when Akaza is like, I'm just gonna, well, I mean, Akaza can't do it. I guess Nakime is watching and like, I'm just gonna add some waterfalls. It was funny. Anyway, this opening fight sequence, the way the music was done, where it just like kind of kept building and building. And this is one of the only parts in the fight where really it's kind of like Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza. I feel like most of the rest of the fight, they kind of switch out, but Giyu just kind of going for it and Tanjiro trying to back him up and hit him with some Hinokami Kagura as well. But a specific moment that I really, really liked was when Giyu uses the 11th form, which is already such a cool moment, but they zoom in on his face and he looks freaking majestic, first of all. Like they know people have a crush on Giyu so much because they just, every single season, make him more and more like majestic. Like they know. Now his eyes are freaking glowing. They weren't glowing before, but now they are. Well, actually, I think that's because the light is returning to his eyes because his backstory has been fleshed out and now he's like believing in himself again. Anyway, but when he uses the 11th form, but we see it from a different perspective that we saw it back in season 1, where we see him literally just like move forward. It was just like, Juichi no kata, nagi. And then it went, huh! And then he like moved and I was like, whoa! What is this? This is, again, I don't think I'm calling these reviews. I'm calling this just me yapping. I yap about Demon Slayer Infinity Castle for 3 hours straight. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, I gotta keep talking. Otherwise, I'm not gonna have time to get chores done today and I need to. So that's just like things that you don't really gather from the manga. Even if, like he used the 11th form here. I'm gonna show you guys this little sketch here in a moment, but you can't really see it. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of working together here, but Tanjiro is obviously having a harder time. And I find that very interesting because Giyu like literally just said he's Hashira level, but then Giyu is outclassing him very quickly physically. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Tanjiro carries a lot in this fight later on, but Giyu very much carries the physical side. It's very obvious from the get-go that neither one of them can fight Akaza on their own. Giyu would be able to hold him off a lot longer than Tanjiro did though, because Tanjiro visibly struggles more physically. Because Tanjiro is a good fighter because of his analytical side. Like Tanjiro is the whole reason, back in episode 1 that Giyu truly decided to save him and send him to Urokadaki is because Tanjiro like outsmarted him with the hatchet. So it makes sense that in this moment, Tanjiro is like smarter in the battle than Giyu, but Giyu is still stronger than him physically. And I find that such a good dynamic that I kind of understood in the manga, but once I saw it animated, it made a lot more sense because Giyu, let's be so for real, he gets the best moments. As a Tanjiro stan, but I'm also a Giyu stan, he's literally my second favorite character, I definitely felt like Giyu got more of the love in the fight as far as like the animation side goes. But Tanjiro has like the more, I guess you could call them important moments, but I digress. So Giyu is like saving him. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this. Look at this little sketch of Nezuko and Urokadaki. She looks so, oh my gosh, that is his daughter, what the heck? And it says, before taking her medicine, Nezuko is delighted to see Urokadaki, whom she hasn't seen for a while. This is the kind of stuff that gets me in the story. I love the animation, but it could have way worse animation and I would love it just as much as I do now because I think the story is so strong with the character emotions. Okay. So yeah, we see dead calm, but we don't get to, because it's not moving, you don't really get the idea of seeing him like just scooch forward without like actually trying. It's so cool. Like I was like, woo, okay. And then like Tanjiro's trying to help, but he gets hit with the crown splitter, which made him bleed. And then Giyu was like, nope, you're not getting him now, because Akaza is literally something I found very interesting. Akaza played with Rengoku. Like, he liked Rengoku, so he was kind of goofing off with him for a while before he dealt the final blow. He's not playing with Giyu as much because I'm going to make something very clear. Giyu at this point is stronger than Rengoku was in Mugen Train, okay? Because Akaza is playing with Giyu a little bit more than he is with Tanjiro, but he's not playing with him as much as he did with Rengoku. With Rengoku, he really just wasn't trying that much. He is with Giyu. With Tanjiro, though, every time they show him when he's trying to hit Tanjiro, he just wants to kill him. He's just angry. And that's how I felt watching the movie, too. It was just like he just wants to kill him. He just wants to kill him. Tanjiro is a bug he cannot squish, and it's hilarious. Meanwhile, with Giyu, he's smiling. So this opening sequence, of course, is amazing. Giyu's like such a relatable introvert. He's like, I'm not gonna give you my name. And Akaza's like, well, I like talking, so what are we gonna do about that? And then he like hits Giyu with this attack that, you know, sends Giyu flying away. Tanjiro's like, Giyu-san! To which Akaza's like, oh, cool, that's his name. And then we get to see, and again, like, Tanjiro does hold his own against Akaza here. It's just not as big of a moment as, like, all the times that Giyu is. It does feel like Tanjiro is kind of struggling a little bit more in these moments. You know, he's going for it, and he's definitely way stronger. Like, Akaza literally says, you've grown so much in such a short period of time. Because as a reminder to everyone, it's only been probably 6-ish months since Rengoku died. Well, probably a little bit longer, probably closer to like 8 months. Because we know, like, Mugen Train ended, Tanjiro literally says it was 4 months in between Mugen Train and Entertainment District. Yeah, and then he was in a coma for 2 months, and then we had Swordsman Village, and then we had Hashira training, which probably took about 1.5 months to 2 months. So it's been roughly 8 to 9 months since Mugen Train. So he has grown a lot, and Akaza is very much aware of that, and he calls it out, and he says, great job. Hanai-san's voice acting, though, when he says, like, I'm glad Rengoku died that night, when Akaza says that, his little, huh? I was like, bro, like, Tanjiro doesn't do that usually. There's usually not like a, like, I've heard Hanai-san do that with other characters, but with Tanjiro, I was like just a little, huh? Got me, okay. And then, of course, he says, like, don't say that about Rengoku, was so good. Tanjiro gets his moment. So, and I think here's the thing. I think the reason why throughout this fight, it feels like Giyu got all of the big moments is because Giyu's not talking. Like, Giyu doesn't talk. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to have a conversation. He doesn't want to explain anything. He just fights. Tanjiro is the opposite, because it's been a running joke since Hashira training that Tanjiro is the extrovert that's like harassing the introvert until he talks to him. So Giyu doesn't want to talk. So since Tanjiro does talk, and he is talking to Akaza, there's a lot more dialogue and a lot less fighting when it comes to Tanjiro. Is that an issue? No. And I also remind people again that yes, he is sitting there talking at real time, but it still is a very fast moment in the chronological time of the anime. It's not that long. And also, Tanjiro talking to him is part of the reason why he is able to end up being defeated, like why Akaza ends up being defeated in the end, is because Tanjiro talking to him and having these morals and being a little bit preachy, if you want to call it that, is the start of Akaza realizing that the reason he hates Tanjiro is not necessarily because he's weak, because now he's not weak. Like, he's not considering him weak anymore, but he still hates him. It is because, at the end of the day, Tanjiro is reminding him of his past. So this is the first time we see Keizo, which, fun fact, in the Japanese, voice acting is voiced by the same voice actor as Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. So in the dub, it's Channing Tatum. In the sub, it's Gojo. You can't lose either way. And that's just a really important moment. So Tanjiro still has some very good moments here, though. Like, he does struggle a little bit when it's just them. But he does do I think it was Solar Heat Haze, which is the first time we see it animated. He hasn't used that in the anime yet. And that's where like his blade kind of extended, and that was super cool. And I think people aren't realizing that, yes, Tanjiro's not getting these like really cool added moments, because I will also throw in the idea that when we see Giyu fighting Akaza and he's like unleashing all of these, that's mostly anime original content to just give the fight more fluff and make it last longer. In the manga, the point is to get to the neck. So every time Tanjiro does a move, like he's genuinely trying to aim for the neck. With Giyu, it kind of feels like he's just trying to do damage and just trying to get there. Tanjiro always just aims for the neck. So I think it is important to know that when it comes to the fights, when it's Giyu, there's a lot of added content there. He is able to still like kind of cut his neck, which is kind of a big deal in this moment. So even though I say like he's kind of struggling, he isn't really struggling. It's just he's not as skilled as Giyu still, which makes sense. Giyu has been a demon slayer for like 9 years. Tanjiro has been a demon slayer for about a year. So Giyu has the experience, Giyu has the skill that Tanjiro doesn't have yet, especially because Giyu is probably the strongest water breather ever at this point. I would say because he's created Dead Calm, it is likely that he's just the best of the best. Tanjiro is using a breathing form that he has not mastered yet. So it makes sense that, yes, it still seems like Tanjiro is struggling a little bit more, but he is still holding his own against him. Tanjiro has his moment, same with you, Akaza, but when you were a baby, someone protected you. This is all like word for word. Like they didn't really add anything here. It just takes longer. Again, because dialogue in the anime takes longer than when you're just reading it in the manga, because when you're watching it in anime, you are subject to how long it takes for the characters to speak. In the manga, you are subject to how long it takes for you to read, and most of us can read faster than characters are gonna speak. So it skews our perception because it feels longer than it actually is. But it was pretty much word for word. But something interesting, and I think they specifically changed this to make this moment funny, to kind of give us a lighthearted moment. When Akaza grabs Tanjiro's sword like this, in the anime, it's kind of funny. Like, Tanjiro headbutts him but doesn't really do anything, and then he's just kind of like kicking at him. He's like, Hanase, Hanase. He's saying, let go, let go. And it's kind of silly. Like, I remember most of the times I've seen it, again, like there's been a couple times where it's been quiet because there's only been a couple people in the theater. But when there's a lot of people in the theater, everyone's kind of giggling at him because it seems really funny. In the manga though, when Tanjiro headbutts him, there's like blood spurting in places. So like, as you can see, right here, there's blood. So it's supposed to like do a little bit more damage. And then the way he kicks him in the manga is like that, where it actually kind of looks like he high kicked him. Like he's actually trying. In the anime, they made it like just him kind of kicking at his legs, like just let go of my sword. So I think they meant to do it. I think they meant to make that moment kind of funny, which is fine. Like that, they just took that liberty. In the manga, it seems a bit more like an issue. Like it seems a bit more like, oh god, oh god, oh god, he's gonna break his sword. No, we don't want this. Like we still haven't gotten to Muzan yet. Don't break his sword, right? And then Giyu jumps in. And of course, he's unintentionally funny in this moment because he of course says, now I'm mad. In the manga, he says, my back hurts, something fierce. You really sent me flying upper 3. Of course, in the anime, and I'm sure he says the exact same thing in Japanese. We're just getting a different translator, as I touched on in my first part of the review. But I think he said, like, now I'm angry because my back hurts, which was a little bit funnier. Like, it is a funny line. It's an unintentionally funny line. And it's also very relatable because, you know, he's only 21. It's not like he's old. I'm 29, okay? I'm almost 10 years older than him at this point, but it makes him like relatable because he's kind of old in the sense of so many of our characters are teenagers, including some of the Hashira. Like even some of the adult Hashira are like 18 or 19. Shinobu's 18, Mitsuri is 19, Rengoku was 20, you know, so he's still like one of the older ones by a lot. So the fact that he's like, my back hurts, I'm like, okay, relatable king. But then, of course, instead of him not being able to move because his back hurts, like it would be for me, if I hurt my back, I would be on the couch not doing anything. He then levels up. So I want to make it clear, he awakens his mark not because his back hurts. I know it's a funny joke. I know it's funny to make the memes of like, all the other Hashira are awakening their mark because they're pushing themselves to the brink of death and whatever, and he awakens his mark because his back hurts. No, that's not why he awakened his mark. He literally explains that he doesn't really like fighting. He doesn't do it for amusement. He pretty much is in a position where he hasn't really had to try that hard because he doesn't want to. He finds no amusement out of it. He does it because he has to. For the first time in a long while, I'm up against a strong opponent who can overwhelm me, and I realize that my senses have been sharply honed in a short time. Senses that were closed off to me have been awakened and dragged out to the place where my strong opponent stands. So he essentially is saying that he feels for the first time in a long time that he has to genuinely try. Like he has to do everything he can to win this fight. He has not had to experience that in a while because remember, he is a Hashira. Rui was nothing to him. He did not try with Rui. There was literally no try there. This is the first time in probably years and years and years since he was a beginner demon slayer that he's felt like he's had to try. So he's like had to hone all of his senses rather than just kind of do it because he has to. Like he knows that he has to try very hard in order to survive this fight to match up with the strength that is Akaza. That's what awakens his mark, not his back hurting. Again, the jokes are funny. I giggle at every single one, but it's starting to get a little bit on the line of, okay, now people are just thinking that's why he actually awakened his mark, and it's not. And it's starting to get a little like, okay, guys, the joke was funny for a little while. Let's remember that he literally explains right after he says his back hurts why he's awakening his mark. But him awakening his mark, the fight sequence that follows this, best part of the movie. As someone who I will literally argue until I'm blue in the face that the show is not about the fight sequences. The anime being so well done animation-wise is why people think the show is about the fights. It's always been about the characters. It always will be about the characters. It is a character-driven, emotionally driven story about the human will. They have to fight in order to get the point across. The anime itself is what focuses so heavily on the fighting. As someone who is like, I prefer the character moments, I can still sit here and say that this fight sequence of marked Giyu versus Akaza is literally the most chill-inducing moment I have had watching any type of media in years. I'm sure it's happened to me before, but it's been a while since I've felt so like I'm on the edge of my seat. I cannot look away. I don't even want to read the subtitles. Luckily, they barely talk, and what they say are things I know. This fight sequence. First of all, animation, absolutely the best they've ever done. Better than Tengen versus Gyutaro, and I will say that till I'm blue in the face. The music, Giyu's theme, I've always enjoyed. Akaza's theme, I've always enjoyed. Them together, masterpiece. But Giyu's theme with the piano and the organ, as he falls through the Infinity Castle, fighting him and using 10th form. And then the music also, like, as the organ starts to play, the drum beat is like, bum, bum, bum. It's so good. And when I saw this in IMAX, I was like, genuinely having an out-of-body experience. Because the first time I watched this movie was not in IMAX, because I saw the Crunchyroll early screening on the 9th, and that it was not available in IMAX anywhere. It was only available standard. We did get to see it in Dolby Cinema, which was different sounds, but personally, I found the sound of IMAX to be better than Dolby Cinema. I don't know if that's a hot take, but it was 100% better than Dolby Cinema, because it's just louder, and you're just so immersed in IMAX. This scene, so the second time I watched the movie, which was on Thursday, the 11th, I was sitting there in complete shock. The fight sequence of when he awakens his mark is bar none the best of Demon Slayer fight scenes. I still would say that the sequence of Nezuko conquering the sun in Swordsman Village, that's the best of Demon Slayer in general, because the animation of that fight sequence is still very good. It's not as dynamic as this, but it's not supposed to be as dynamic. It's more emotional. I still think that is the best of the best of the best of Demon Slayer, because it perfectly depicts everything that is Demon Slayer. The emotions, the family ties, the voice acting, the music, the animation, like the end of Swordsman Village when Nezuko conquers the sun, the fight sequence that Tanjiro has when he takes him down, that to me is still the best Demon Slayer moment ever, because it's everything in one. This moment is just hype. This moment is just super cool. It is the best of Demon Slayer animated wise, and my favorite part from the movie. I cannot stress to you enough how much I loved this fight sequence. As someone who absolutely loves and adores the animation of Demon Slayer and constantly talks about how amazing it is and how much I love the animators and all of the work they put in it, as someone who still kind of prefers the emotionally driven scenes over the hype scenes, because that's what I love about Demon Slayer, this was incredible. And I will also add that, of course, okay, so Giyu awakens his mark. We have one page where they talk about his mark and that his speed has increased, and then we see him like kind of hit Giyu, and then we're pretty much right to Tanjiro starting to go into his thing about the transparent world. So this was very, very fluffed up for the movie, which makes sense, obviously. This UFO table always adds to the fight sequences, like always. The Shinobu fight is really one of the only times where they barely added anything, and they still did, but it was one of the first times where they barely added anything to that. But this part of the fight, oh my goodness, they added so much. Like all of those extra, I think even using 10th form was anime original. I don't think Giyu uses it. Yeah, we see him using 4th form, striking tide, and then like Tanjiro was saying, in a drawn out fight. So they did take this out. In a drawn-out fight, a human's at a huge disadvantage. His strength won't last forever. Besides, our goal is to defeat Muzan. We can't spend all night fighting Akaza. And if we don't hurry, Tamayo will ... hurry, take him out fast. If we don't hurry, everyone will die. So this is a little bit different. While we see this incredible fight sequence happen, and Tanjiro's kind of thinking as he watches, he mentions that Akaza is catching up to Giyu, like he immediately adapts to his speed increase, which I think makes sense for Akaza, but he does not talk about the fact that, okay, he does. They're both so fast, but Akaza adapted to Giyu's increased speed, so that was right before. So he says that, but then they took out this dialogue. I think they should have left this in, because I think this kind of explains why Tanjiro starts to think harder, to see his thought process of being like, we're doing good, like we're okay, but I have to find a way to end this. I'm gonna move my camera down a little bit because I'm like so into this that I'm slumping down into my chair. He's pretty much saying, I need to find a way to end this quickly though, because Akaza is not the goal here. This is unlike any other battle that Tanjiro has been a part of yet, where he just needs to take down the demon in front of him. He knows that this is just a warm-up. And if they're gonna be super bruised and battered from this, how are they gonna fight Muzan, right? And I mean, they do get bruised and battered. But it's interesting that they took out that dialogue, so they have taken out quite a lot. But this is when Tanjiro starts to go into his flashback. Now, a lot of people have said, first he's talking with Inosuke. I will remind everyone that yes, Tanjiro's saying like, that's right, with his own sense of skin, Inosuke also sensed what was invisible to the eye. After that, what did we talk about? In the anime, it makes it seem kind of like Tanjiro is just standing there while Giyu is fighting for his life, and Tanjiro's just like, oh yeah, that's what Inosuke said. What else did he say? No, this is all happening in a second. First of all, if you look closely in the anime at Giyu and Akaza fighting while Tanjiro's kind of going through his flashback with Inosuke, you'll see that literally Akaza and Giyu are barely moving, because it's literally Tanjiro's going through these thoughts very, very quickly. Okay, our perception of it is skewed because we are listening to him talk. We can only spend as much time as the anime does on the dialogue, but in the real timeline of the anime, this is very quick. This is very fast. We're just seeing it all unfold as a full story because they have to, but in real time, this is very quick. Anyway, I really, really enjoyed the little moments with Inosuke. It's so cute. And also, side note, when he was like, it's not old hag, it's elderly lady. He says, Baba janai, Oba-san. And then Inosuke says, Baba-san, kore! I didn't have to read the subtitles because those are kind of moments that are very Japanese nuanced, and it's kind of hard for them to translate that because Baba is just like a very derogatory way of addressing an elderly lady. Oba-san is like usually what you call grandma, like you would say that to your own grandma, so it's like a respectful elderly lady. And then for Inosuke to go, Baba-san, it's like, okay, he combined Baba and Oba-san. Baba-san, so it's like derogatory term, san, which is like Mr. or Mrs., right? It was funny. But Tanjiro going through and having this memory with Inosuke, he jumps in, he tries to use dance, Kamikaze dance on Akaza, and then of course Akaza's like, your body's wide open, and he swings in, and look at Akaza's pouty face here. I swear that was one of the funniest things. Every time he's fighting Giyu, he's smiling. Like when Giyu was kind of going into his little inner monologue before he manifested his mark, it shows Akaza, and Akaza's literally like creepy smiling because he's so excited. He's like, ah, yay, this guy's back. I can stop fighting the dude I hate. Yay. And then whenever he has to fight Tanjiro, he's like, it's so funny. Anyway, so he tries to hit Tanjiro, and then Tanjiro is able to avoid it. In the manga, it actually shows it. I think they took this out of the anime because it was like a continuity error, because in the manga, it literally shows that it's like he barely dodged. Like Akaza ripped his uniform and grazed him. They took that out of the anime, I think, because right after this, his uniform was not ripped. Like it was fully intact. So I think they just took that little aspect out of it to help with the continuity of it. And then we talk about the bear. This was really, really well done as well. One thing that we always know with Demon Slayer is that they're always going to take their time when they are explaining something, right? So this flashback takes 5 minutes to get through, kind of, because it's just like a back and forth, and it's kind of discussing why we're gonna do what we're gonna do, which is gonna be the see-through world. It's very important, okay? I will throw out there that even if you think the conversation between him and his dad and the showing of like how he killed the bear is not important, you need to hang on to that information because there's more to come. And while this explained the unlocking of the see-through world, there is more stuff that's going to happen with Tanjiro later on that still, like, you need to remember what happened here with this conversation because it's all important. Not just the bear part, but the conversation and everything. And it was just a really sweet moment. You know, they added the little hopscotch game with the younger siblings. Baby Tanjiro is so cute. But they pretty much adapted this perfectly, and this was very well done. The only thing that they took out that I was a little bit sad about is after his dad beheads the bear, Tanjiro says, I saw it, I saw it, are you all right? And like, I'm saying that as in like, it literally is, I saw it, father, are you all right? I'm fine, don't forget what you saw. And then they hugged and they took the little hug out. That's just me being a little silly. I wish we got to see Tanjiro hug his dad because Tanjiro needs love and they take out the moments where he's getting it. Anyway. Yeah, very, very cool moment. The manga shows it a little bit better that he can genuinely see through everything. And in the anime, it kind of made it a little bit more like he was just seeing bursts of it, I guess. But they like genuinely show through everything. That's the end of volume 17, and we move into volume 18. And okay, I feel like with the see-through world, they didn't add a ton, but what they did add, and I find this very interesting. So here we see right off the bat, Giyu is using Seisei Ruten, which is constant flux, so 10th form. And of course, here we go. He breaks Giyu's sword, and Akaza says, it appears you've already used your forms. I like that in the anime, they did add a lot to this fight, because in the manga, we only see like 4th form and 10th form. In the anime, they added, like, he was using all of his forms. So like this wording makes more sense. And then this is my second favorite moment in the entire movie. And I said this in a previous video, I will say it again. Akaza is trying in this moment he's milliseconds away from killing Giyu in the exact way he killed Rengoku. Fist through the middle of the body. But in this moment, Tanjiro saves him, which is the exact thing that he wasn't able to do in Mugen Train, and that he's been like feeling guilty over ever since then. Because remember, Tanjiro's emotions and his crying and his frustration from Mugen Train is not necessarily just because Rengoku died. Yes, he is sad Rengoku died. He's a loyal kid, and he's able to latch on to people quickly because he's able to smell their intentions. So he kind of latches on to these people quickly because he can trust them very quickly. But the main reason why he was so emotional with Rengoku is because he genuinely just couldn't understand why he couldn't do anything. He couldn't save him. He couldn't do anything. This moment is a full circle moment for Tanjiro, because is it like the first time that he saves Giyu in this fight? Yes, and Giyu's already saved him multiple times. But the kind of point of this moment is that he doesn't just save Giyu. He saves him from the same fate as Rengoku. Like, he is literal milliseconds away from witnessing the exact same thing that he witnessed with Rengoku, but he's able to save him. And this is a full circle moment for Tanjiro, because that very fact that he couldn't save Rengoku has been eating him alive since it happened. The reason that Rengoku continues to appear in the show is because his words meant so much to Tanjiro, and he is constantly reminded of what Rengoku said to him. So in this moment, when he is able to save Giyu from that fate, this is a full circle moment for him, and I love it. This sequence, I love. They make Tanjiro he's very menacing in the manga, but in the anime, the way he genuinely just stands there most of the time. On one hand, you're like, oh, it wasn't as cool as the fight against Giyu because that was much more dynamic. But Tanjiro is literally just like, dodging. It was so cool. I don't know how else to describe it other than like the music. I don't believe it's like he's watching above while it happens, and then he's still just standing there. And they added a lot to this too, like this moment with Akaza's attack, with like having like a bunch of clones, like that didn't really appear in the manga. Like you don't see all of the different, like not clones, but like it was as if he spawned into multiple different things, right? But yeah, in the manga, he doesn't have this like out-of-body experience where he's watching it. Like they really extended this part as well, and it was so well done for different reasons than the marked moment. The only reason I don't have this as high as Giyu versus Akaza with the mark is simply because the music of marked Giyu was better. The music of this part is still really good, don't get me wrong. But the organ coming in when marked Giyu was fighting Akaza, that was just like, that was an out-of-body experience for me. Yeah, they added a lot to this as well. Something I find interesting here is, I mean, Tanjiro must have still gotten hit on the head. Because and this is the same in the anime, he is not bleeding from the head here, right? Like he is completely normal on the head. We see Akaza is fighting him, or he's fighting Giyu really, and he thinks that he just hit Tanjiro and Tanjiro's dead now. And he's fine. And then suddenly when Tanjiro is behind him, he's all bloody on the head. So he must have still gotten hit because now he's all bloody, like all through his head. Let's talk about him calling out to Akaza, because yes, this moment is funny. Yes, it's hilarious. It's like, oh, come on. Like Giyu is genuinely like, you're behind him. and he doesn't know you're there. Like, go for it. Get his head, because Akaza literally doesn't realize you're there. Tanjiro calling him out. First of all, I think he learned that from his dad, because his dad, when he killed the bear, like, talked to him first. He said, I'm sorry, but if you're going to try and eat my family, I'm gonna have to kill you. I'll show you no mercy. He didn't have to say that to the bear. The bear doesn't understand, well, they're speaking in Japanese. The bear doesn't understand Japanese, right? The bear speaks bear language. I think he called out to Akaza because in his memory, his dad gave the enemy an opportunity to know he was there. Was it funny? Yes, it was hilarious. I laugh every single time. It's giggle worthy, absolutely. But I think that there's a point to him doing this. Number one is because I think he just wanted it to be a fair fight. He doesn't believe in sneak attacks, so he did it. The other thing to keep in mind is that he literally killed Akaza right after that. It's not like it affected anything. He killed, well, he didn't kill him. He beheads him a minute later, not even, right? And also, when we get into Akaza's backstory and we find out about what happened to him, we find out that he doesn't like cowards as in just weak people. He thinks people who act in a backhanded way are weak, because the dojo poisoned the well. They didn't just fight them head on. They went with backhanded tactics to take over the dojo. And while I think that if Tanjiro did in fact slice his head on a sneak attack in battle, that's not really a cowardly move to do. I think Akaza would have seen that as a cowardly move, and at the end of the day, if he had beheaded him that way, I think Akaza 100% would not have accepted defeat. So while yes, it's a funny moment, it's important to note that one, I think Tanjiro did it on purpose because his dad spoke to the bear first. He still beheaded him a minute later because he outclassed Akaza in that moment. He completely overwhelmed Akaza's senses and confused him and was able to behead him. And he also probably still saved them because he faced him head on, and that act is what caused Akaza to accept defeat and die. So this moment is incredible. He just jumps up, beheads him, and shout out to Hanai-san once again for saying the Hinokami Kagura form so quiet and calmly. Tanjiro is always so loud. We always hear Hinokami Kagura as like a Hinokami Kagura, you know, like super loud and passionate, but in that moment he was just like, Hinokami Kagura. And I was like, because again, as a manga reader, I know what's about to happen. I know everything that's gonna happen, but what I don't know is how the voice actors are gonna do it. What I don't know is how much the animation's gonna add. What I don't know is what the music's gonna sound like. And that's all just so good. Like, this sequence was a very close second behind marked Giyu, and it's kind of insane that it's not first because Tanjiro is my favorite character, but there was just something about marked Giyu that was just, I want to keep watching the movie just for that. Like, when it hits Crunchyroll, my watch history is just always gonna be that funny. So yeah, that was amazing. My camera's gonna die, so I'm gonna have to kind of speed up talking about this, and we're already at 70 minutes. So, of course, Tanjiro beheads him, but he just starts to put his head back on his neck. To which, of course, Giyu throws his sword and his head disintegrates and we think it's over. Something that I was very surprised by is when Akaza throws or like kicks Tanjiro into the wall, which Tanjiro then faints a few moments later, and Akaza has been beheaded. In the manga, it does, again, it says grind and crunch, but I don't know if y'all know, but when they have these like sound effects, I oftentimes actually miss them because they're not speech bubbles, so I don't think to like read them. Tanjiro's ribs cracked. So yay. He's gonna be fighting with broken ribs for the rest of the night. That's great, love that for him. I will just throw out here that these moments when Tanjiro faints and Giyu is now alone in fighting him, in fighting Akaza, this moment right here is my favorite panel in the entire manga because it's protective Giyu at his most intense, right? He says, if you want to kill Tanjiro, first defeat me. And then it goes into Akaza's backstory, which I'm actually not gonna spend a ton of time on it because I think it's very straightforward. I don't have a lot of thoughts other than It freaking sucks, man. Anyway, so, and my camera's about to die. I might make a video dedicated to his backstory at a later time. This is the moment that really frustrated me the most, is that once Giyu said, if you want to kill Tanjiro, first defeat me, and we go into Akaza's backstory, we stuck with the backstory pretty much until the end. In the manga, it goes back to Giyu, and this is when he says, this is bad, I can't see very well, I'm about to pass out. I can't hear anything at all with my left ear, my right hand has no feeling, I have no strength, but for how long? Sprinting isn't something you can do for a long time. If a normal person runs at full speed for just 10 seconds, they'll be totally out of breath. When you keep going past that, your speed drops and then the precision of your technique falls. Your muscles strain and your hands and feet get heavy like lead. Demons don't feel exhaustion or pain. In a fight against an upper-ranked demon, maintaining full strength for a long time is a miracle that only some who can use breathing techniques can do. I must pass on what was entrusted to me. Never again will I let my family and friends die before my eyes. I am so mad they took this out, because this to me made the moment where he said, if you want to kill Tanjiro, first defeat me. It was still a huge moment that I love, but this really honed in on how important this was to him to protect Tanjiro. Taking this out, first of all, took out a little bit of that exposition of him just kind of being like, I've been sprinting, I'm not gonna be able to do this much longer because I'm a human. And it kind of reinstates the idea that we are fighting foes that we're such a disadvantage at, but the human spirit will go on. And his human spirit here is completely put on by the fact that he wants to protect Tanjiro. So I'm so, like, I really, this is the one thing I'm like, why did they take this out? Why did they take this out? This is so important. And we also see Sabito and Sutako, his sister, but even just him saying, I must pass on what was entrusted to me. Never again will I let my family and friends die before my eyes. I will save him. I will save Tanjiro the same way that I was saved. This is such an important moment for his character. Why did they take that out? This is what makes the fight a 9.8 instead of a 10, because this was such a huge moment, and this is such big character development for Giyu, and this is such a important moment for him as far as how much he wants to protect Tanjiro. And we still see that desire, we still physically see it because he's trying so hard to fight Akaza, and he still said, like, if you want to kill Tanjiro, you have to first defeat me, which is the best part of this. But, like, I'll save him. I will save Tanjiro the same way I was saved. It's a crime to take that out. That's such a huge moment for Giyu. So that is my one biggest complaint. Akaza's backstory. Let me try and think of a way I can say this. I think it speaks for itself. His backstory is, to me, the epitome of Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is a story where everyone in the story, except for maybe a select few demons, have experienced immense pain and trauma. And many of them, you have to choose whether you're going to remain fighting the good fight and just choose to protect people from it, or become one of them, right? So many of the demons have such painful backstories that you can kind of understand why they chose the way that they chose. First of all, Akaza doesn't get to choose to become a demon. Muzan literally just stuck his fist through his face and his head. Akaza was either going to turn into a demon or die in that moment. Hakuji. I'll use his human name now for the rest of it. Hakuji. So he didn't get to decide to become a demon. He just didn't care anymore. But the way his backstory is written, and it bothers the hell out of me that so many people are mad that his backstory was so long. This has always been what Demon Slayer is about. Demon Slayer is not about the fights. Are they a huge plus? Absolutely. Demon Slayer is about the characters, including the villains. Akaza is a character that everything about him has to do with his past, even though Muzan took his memories away. They did a very good job at adapting it. I sob every time I watch this. The music is very good. The voice acting is very good. The animation is just as stunning, it's just not dynamic. I think people think that the fight sequences are the best animation, and that's just because there's a lot of movement, so there's a lot more frames, but like the backdrops and the visuals of the backstories are just as good. It's not too long, in my opinion. I don't care that it's long. I think it's very, very important to the story because we have to understand why Akaza is the way that he is, why Hakuji is the way that he is, and it further progresses the idea that the true demon is Muzan, that he is the one who has wreaked havoc on the earth. And while yes, all of these demons should not be forgiven for what they did, I think a lot of people mistake understanding for forgiveness. No, we understand where they came from and we feel empathy for them, but we are not supposed to forgive them because at the end of the day, they still killed hundreds, thousands of people, right? And Akaza being an upper moon means that he killed even more. But to understand that, I don't know how to word it as a review. When he is going back and forth. Okay, wait, let's jump before that. So we learn, of course, that his dad hung himself because he got caught, that he pickpockets because he needs medicine for his dad, but they're poor. So like he kind of has to resort to petty crime, petty theft, in order for his dad to survive, but he keeps getting caught. And this one time when his dad finds out that he gets caught, he hangs himself. Then he gets salvation through Keizo and Koyuki because they, like, first Keizo just treats him like a normal kid. He's just like, oh, you're not a criminal anymore because I beat the criminal out of you. I'm like, go Keizo. And they also call out in this moment that Tanjiro and Keizo are similar, and that's why, like, Akaza finally realizes that's why he's hated him, is because it's reminded him of his worthless past. He learns to love again. He believes that he's on the path again, and he goes years of being, like, a normal person, and he falls in love with Koyuki. And then right when it seems that his life has truly turned around for good, the dojo poisons the well and he's not there. And I think there's a lot of similarities between him and Tanjiro because he specifically is like, whenever my loved ones are in danger, I'm not there to protect them. And you can say that like Tanjiro feels the same way, like he wasn't there to protect them. And so we're showing the parallels of even like him and Tanjiro and why Akaza deserves empathy. Again, he doesn't deserve to be forgiven because he still brutally murdered innocent people. But when we understand what he's been through, we can understand why he's gotten to the place where he's at. I sobbed every single time. It was so beautifully done. The scene with the fireworks when she asks him to be her husband, the tears that roll down my face. I'm just like, it was a beautifully done scene. I don't think it needed to be shorter. I don't. They definitely added some moments here and there, but it is like a whole chapter and a half. So it feels longer in the anime because, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, when there's scenes that are heavy dialogue, they take longer than the fight sequences because dialogue takes longer than fight sequences. So since a backstory has dialogue, it's going to take longer than the fight sequences, even if it takes up the same amount of time in the manga. Akaza's backstory is very important because I think it is the height, it is the tip of the like sad demon backstories. We're still going to get demon backstories, but they're not like Akaza's. I'll just say that. Now, there's also the idea that Akaza was trying to evolve to become as strong as Muzan with, like, you know, not having his head be his weak point. And I think that Tanjiro still defeated him. I will say it till I'm blue in the face. If Akaza yes, did the physical blow, but he only did that because he accepted defeat from Tanjiro. Like, he literally says, I was defeated when he outclassed me. In the moment where Tanjiro wakes up and he realizes that Giyu is still fighting Akaza and he tries to go in for the kill, but his sword slips out of his hands and he punches him. Again, kind of a funny moment. Like, Tanjiro has a lot of moments where he's just like trying to figure out what to do. He punches him in the face. And that right there could be really considered the defeat because that right there is when he literally punched Akaza into understanding that Akaza needed to die because it reminded him of Keizo. Again, because Tanjiro keeps reminding him of Keizo. So by Tanjiro using his fists, that was the final straw for Akaza. and the back and forth. First of all, when he like goes to unleash his thing on himself and Tanjiro like desperately runs for Giyu, that made me emotional because I feel like in his face you can kind of tell, because he literally just mentions like this is what he unleashed on Rengoku. And when he's like running after Giyu, I feel like he is in that moment, like, I cannot lose someone else to Akaza. I have to save Giyu because I need, like, he also cares for Giyu. He looks up to him and he is now kind of returning the favor that Giyu was just doing for him, and he's trying to get him out of the attack range. And then of course Akaza ends up attacking himself. The moment he smiles was already emotional in the manga, but with the organ playing and then like him going back and forth, seeing his dad and seeing Keizo, and Keizo's like, you're my son and my student. But then Muzan tries to like turn him back, and then it ends up being Koyuki, the one who actually brings him back to his human self, and he ends up disintegrating because of it. And she goes to hell with him. The moment where they're all saying Okaeri, Okaeri, which means welcome home, essentially. She says Okaeri anata, which I know, like, we got the translation that she finally doesn't call him Hakuji-san anymore. She calls him Anata, which is a very old way of saying, like, my dear. It's the Japanese word for you. Like, that's just you. But a while ago, wives would use that as a term of endearment towards their husbands. So like you kind of read that as a moment where she was like, welcome home, my husband. It's kind of more how I read it than my darling, but she's been calling him Hakuji-san, 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 which is very like it's not a familial way to refer to people. Usually family members don't use san, they just call them by their name. But not only does she change from saying san, but she changes to calling him Anata. And then they go to hell together. I sob every time. I will say though, if you cry over that, be prepared for the next two. I don't know how else to say it. I give the fight a 9.8 out of 10. I give the backstory a 10 out of 10. I think they did it perfect. I'm not gonna go through because I'm way over time on this one as well. I'm not going to go through yet. I will make a video kind of analyzing truly what was added and what wasn't there. Otherwise, I want to just say that that was beautiful and that was an amazing part of the movie. I want to close with talking about the closing moments with Kokushibo and him using his blood demon art without even seeing his sword come out. He literally slashed through pillars and we didn't see his sword come out. I don't think y'all are ready for that fight. I'm not either. Thank God we have some time in between movies because I need to recover from the Akaza fight for a little while before I see that one. So yeah, UFO table, take your time. What an incredible end. And that was like the true cliffhanger because of course we saw him and then we saw Doma and then we saw that like Kanao has gotten a little bit wounded. And then of course, like it just sets us up well for those two fights. For those of you who are saying that you didn't like it because it was unfinished, it's the first movie of a trilogy. You cannot watch 1/3 of a TV season and then make a review and say it feels unfinished because it's not done, okay? It is a movie trilogy. There will be closure at the third one. So I hope you're ready for there not to be closure at the end of the next one either. I don't know, like that's just so silly to me. The closing credits with all of the Slayers like reacting to Tanjido and Giyu defeating them, and then, oh my gosh, they added that one final scene with the crows, with Giyu's super old crow saying, Shiruna, Giyu, and I was like, oh my gosh, he sounds so sad, and then Tanjiro's crow also saying, don't die on me. That was not in the manga and I was not prepared for that. I don't know why that made me emotional, but like these crows are with them. You know, they are with them from the start of becoming a demon slayer. So of course, like when they're both passed out and bloody and you know they're probably bleeding out because they can't control their breathing while they're unconscious, they could just die, you know? Like they're not out of the woods. They've both passed out, but they have many wounds that they're not stopping the bleeding for, so they could bleed out. And so like these crows are just like, all they can do is sit there and wait and hope they don't die. And them adding that as the final scene before the credits officially roll, I was like, holy frick. So the movie was amazing. I want to go watch it again. I still feel like even though I just made 2 hour-and-a-half long videos about it that I can't do it justice, but I still have more videos to come. It was just overall such an amazing experience, and I think this is actually going to be the weakest of the three. I think once we see the next two, I think most people will agree, because the next two have some crazy moments. You know, it's just go, go, go from here on out. Like, we're in the final arc, so there's a lot to go, but my camera is flashing at me that it's about to die, so we're gonna end the video there. If I missed something, I'm sorry. Like I said, I didn't write anything down, and this was just totally me just yapping for literally 3 hours. I started recording this at 10 a.m. It is now 1 p.m. So that's gonna be it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts, and I will see you all later. Matane!